and welcome to the visual dungeon guide for the Underkeep. This dungeon was released in patch 7.2 and is unlocked via the level 100 main scenario quest, Descent to the Foundation.
The first boss is Gargant. Chilling Chirp is a group-wide attack that deals unavoidable damage to all party members. Healers be ready. The boss will then turn and begin to cast Almighty Racket, which will cleave the entire battlefield in that direction. You can easily dodge this attack by standing behind the boss. The boss will eventually become untargetable as it climbs up one of the pillars connecting to the surrounding walls. You will need to follow the boss, which will scuttle around the arena before stopping to hide behind one of the sandfalls. The boss will then use Almighty Racket again, this time charging across the full length of the battlefield as a linear area of effect. You will need to quickly maneuver yourself so you are not standing in front of the sandfall, which is concealing the boss from view. The boss will then return to the battlefield and become targetable.
The boss will next move to the center of the battlefield and use Chilling Chirp. In addition to the group-wide damage, the boss will cause 2 large circular area of effects at each side to appear, as sedimentary debris falls from above. The boss will immediately follow up with Almighty Racket, synchronizing these attacks. You will need to maneuver behind the boss, while also avoiding the additional circular area of effects. The boss will then target all players with a circular area of effect for unavoidable damage. Spread out to prevent overlapping damage from one another, while also avoiding the additional stationary area of effects as more sedimentary debris falls from above. The boss will then move to the center of the battlefield and use Earth Song, which will conjure 2 sets of floating orbs before becoming untargetable as it once again scuttles around the arena. These orbs will each explode in a circular area of effect, with each set detonating in the order they appeared. You will need to wait for the first set of orbs to detonate before maneuvering to the newly opened safe areas to avoid taking damage from the second set. You will still need to keep track of the boss's location, as it will also eventually hide behind one of the sandfalls and charge across the battlefield as before. The boss should now use Almighty Racket again. However, it will also target all players with a circular area of effect for unavoidable damage. You will need to stand behind the boss to avoid the frontal cleave before spreading out to prevent overlapping damage from one another. Trap Jaws is a tank buster that deals heavy damage to the target. Use defensive cooldowns and shields to mitigate it. These mechanics will now repeat until the boss is defeated. The second boss is Soldier S0. Field of Scorn is a group-wide attack that deals unavoidable damage to all party members. Healers be ready. Thunderous Slash is a tank buster that deals heavy damage to the target. Use defensive cooldowns and shields to mitigate it. Sector by Sector will conjure several holograms around the battlefield. These holograms will begin to harmlessly disperse one after another in a linear order. The final hologram, however, will perform a half-room cleave in the direction its sword is facing. Ordered Fire will conjure a total of 4 electrope gates at the outer edges of the battlefield. These gates will each fire a linear area of effect beam in front of them for the entire length of the battlefield. You will need to make sure you are not standing directly in front of any gates to avoid taking damage. The boss will also immediately use Static Force for a synchronized attack, targeting all players with a cone-shaped area of effect for unavoidable damage. Spread out to prevent overlapping damage from one another, while also ensuring you are not standing directly in front of any of the electrope gates. This can be a tight fit, so stay calm and adjust your positions as needed. Electric Excess will target all players with a circular area of effect for unavoidable damage, spread out to prevent overlapping damage from one another. These mechanics will now repeat until the boss is defeated. The third boss is Valia Pira. Entropic Sphere is a group-wide attack that deals unavoidable damage to all party members. Healers be ready. Coordinate March will conjure 2 or more orbs around the battlefield. Meanwhile, 2 floating electrope cubes will begin to cross from one side of the arena to the other, with each cube following their own path as indicated by the appearance of blue lines, similar to a train following tracks. When an electrope cube makes contact with an orb, it will detonate, exploding in a cross-shaped area of effect for the length of the battlefield. The boss will activate 2 of the turret cannons at the outer edge of the arena, which will cause a warning message to appear as they are activated. The activated turrets will each fire a linear area of effect beam for the entire length of the battlefield. You will need to ensure you are not standing directly in front of an activated turret once the warning message timer ends. Electric Field will cause multiple cone-shaped area of effects to appear from the center of the battlefield, while also targeting each player with a cone-shaped area of effect for unavoidable damage, spread out to prevent overlapping damage from one another. These area of effects will slowly expand, so each player will need to maneuver towards the largest gaps to avoid taking damage from multiple strikes. The boss will turn to face a random direction before casting Neutralize Front Lines, which is a half-room cleave in the direction the boss is currently facing, while also targeting each player with a circular area of effect for unavoidable damage. You will need to stand behind the boss while spreading out to prevent overlapping damage from one another. Blood March will tether one of the orbs conjured from Coordinate March to a location on the battlefield. Once Blood March has finished casting, the orb will be instantly moved to the location it was tethered to. Deterrent Pulse will target one player with a stack marker. The group will need to stack and stand together to share the incoming damage. The boss will eventually begin to use Coordinate March, Blood March, and turrets together in synchronization. You will need to maneuver between the detonating orbs, while also avoiding standing in the path of the activated turrets. These mechanics will now repeat until the boss is defeated.